this is Lady Boulay, and welcome back to Black American Lineage. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for what you do to support the channel. And I heard the message, so we will get back to just doing history and inventions and things to do with Black American history. And today we're going to talk about the intellectual property of enslaved people and how the intellectual property of some of them was stolen. This is Henry Blair. He was an inventor and farmer, best known as the second African American to hold a United States patent. Now, he wasn't the second one to invent something. He was just the second one to have his invention registered through the patent office. And this article is going to tell you what happened to some of the others. Henry Blair was born in Glen Ross, Maryland in 1807. He was a farmer who patented two devices designed to help boost agricultural productivity. Now remember, in 1807, that agriculture would be cotton, tobacco, sugarcane, rice, and a product called indigo that they stopped producing because it was poisonous. Now you will hear a lot of these so-called white supremacists on podcasts and other places talking about they built the country, they built the country. They don't know what the country was built on. America was built on an agricultural economy, not an industrial economy, an agricultural economy, mainly cotton, sugarcane, rice, tobacco, okay? Henry Blair's first invention was a corn planter, for which he received a patent on October 14, 1834. This planter resembled a wheelbarrow with a compartment to hold the seed and rakes dragging behind the seed to cover them. This device enabled farmers to plant their crops more efficiently and enable a greater total yield. Blair signed the patent with an X, indicating that he was illiterate. They call it illiterate. I just say he couldn't write because it was against the law for black people to learn how to read and write. It appears that he was not enslaved. He was a free black, but they still couldn't go to school and learn how to read and write. His invention was important because corn was a part of the agricultural economy that the enslaved people built. So this was a very important invention because it allowed them to plant corn faster with a greater amount of corn produced, which means they could now export corn. So that also added to the economy. His second invention was a cotton planter, for which he received a patent on August 31st, 1836. This invention functioned by splitting the ground with two shovel-like blades that were pulled along by a horse or other draft animal. A wheel-driven cylinder behind the blades deposited seed into the freshly plowed ground. The design helped to promote weed control while distributing seeds quickly and evenly. This was a very important invention because it sped up the planting of cotton, and it also controlled the weed, because one of the important parts of producing cotton is weeding the cotton. That's called chopping the cotton. They used to do that when I was a kid. Growing up, people would go and chop cotton. That means they're chopping the weeds out of the cotton. And they said that was harder than picking the cotton. So this was an excellent invention. Now, these are things that we don't hear about unless we go searching for them. But this is every bit as important as the cotton gin. So you got more cotton to gin. And let's remember that the enslaved people have always said, and now they're admitting, that the cotton gin was actually invented by an enslaved person that they called Sam. But they always gave credit to Eli Whitney. So that's called intellectual theft. In claiming credit for his two inventions, Henry Blair became only the second African American to hold a United States patent. They keep repeating that because it's unusual. While Blair appears to have been a free man, the granting of his patents is not evidence of his legal status. At the time Blair's patents were granted, United States law allowed patents to be granted to both free and enslaved men. In 1857, now this is what's important. In 1857, an enslaver, that means somebody that owned the enslaved people, challenged the courts for the right to claim credit for an enslaved person's inventions. Since an enslaver's enslaved people were his property, the plaintiff argued anything in the possession of these enslaved people was the owner's property as well. And that is how they got away with stealing the intellectual property of enslaved people, because the people who held them in slavery considered them their property. So anything that they invented, anything that they did belonged to those white enslavers, and that was the law for a long time. The enslaved people were doing a lot of inventions in those days because these were brilliant people. They didn't go into Africa and get dummies. They got the best and the brightest. So in 1857, this white man challenged the law that said enslaved people could retain control of their inventions. So in 1858, the patent law changed so that the enslaved people could not receive patent eligibility. In 1871, after the Civil War, the law was revised to grant all American men, regardless of race, the right to patent their inventions. Women were not included in this intellectual property protection. Blair followed only Thomas Jennings as an African American patent holder. Extant records indicate that Jennings received a patent in 1821 for the dry scouring of clothing. Well, dry cleaning is what Thomas Jennings invented. Though the patent record contains no mention of Jennings' race, his background has been substantiated through other sources. So see, in 1857, right up until 1857, white people didn't think that the enslaved people had sense enough, were smart enough to invent anything. So they were allowed to apply for patents. But after they started inventing and going to the patent office, the white people who owned these enslaved people went to court and said whatever they invent is ours. So in 1858, they changed the law and said if you're an enslaved person, you cannot get a patent. And they didn't change that law until 1871. Now, a lot of stuff got done under the table. So even after 1871, tricky stuff was happening. But this is how their intellectual property was stolen. They would not grant enslaved people or free blacks a patent for the things they invented. So we don't know how much intellectual property has been stolen. So this is Henry Blair. He made two very important inventions. He invented the cotton planter and the corn planter. Very, very important inventions at the time they were invented. We don't know much about his personal life. As far as the records show, he was born and died in Maryland. He died in 1860. So this is another giant in the African American community that we don't know about. We have to search these things out. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about the video. Give me a like and have a good day.